Would you hurt someone just because a person in charge told you to? It's a tough question. Most of us like to think we'd never do something harmful to others, that we'd stand up for what's right. But history and science, well, they tell a very different and much more complicated story. Back in the 1960s, a psychologist named Stanley Milgram decided to put this to the test. He conducted one of the most famous and controversial studies on obedience in history. Here's how it worked. Volunteers were brought in and told they were part of a learning experiment. Their job was to act as the teacher and give increasingly strong electric shocks to a learner in another room every time the learner got a question wrong. Now, the shocks weren't real, and the learner was an actor, but the volunteers didn't know that. They could hear the learner's shouts of pain, their pleas to stop, and eventually, a chilling silence. The shocking truth. A staggering number of people, ordinary folks just like you and me, continued to administer the shocks all the way to the highest level. Why? Because an authority figure in a white lab coat calmly told them, the experiment requires that you continue. So why? Why do regular, decent people obey authority, even when it goes directly against their own conscience and moral compass? Psychologists point to something called social conditioning. From the moment we're born, we're trained to listen to and respect authority. We obey our parents, our teachers, our bosses, and the rules of society. It's deeply ingrained. Our brains are essentially wired to follow guidance from those we perceive as being in charge. This can be a good thing. It helps society function smoothly. But it also means that sometimes we follow instructions without stopping to question the morality or the consequences of what we're being asked to do. It's a mental shortcut that can lead us down a dark path. And the lessons from Milgram's experiment aren't just confined to a lab. They echo throughout history in our modern world. Think about it. From soldiers in a war zone following orders to bureaucrats in an office pushing papers that enforce unjust policies, or even everyday employees completing tasks they don't fully understand or agree with. Authority is a necessary part of how our world is organized. We need structure, leadership, and rules to avoid chaos. But the danger lies in blind obedience when we stop thinking for ourselves and simply do as we're told, no matter the cost. That's when authority becomes a tool for harm instead of a force for good. Even today, you can see this effect in simple, everyday situations. We ran a little social experiment of our own. We had someone dressed in a Securitas-style uniform go out and ask strangers to do slightly unusual but harmless things, like standing on one foot or picking up a random collection of items that weren't theirs. The results were fascinating. The vast majority of people just complied without asking why. Then, when the same person in regular clothes made the same request, people were far more likely to question it, or just walk away. This shows that obedience isn't really about your personality or your moral character. It asks about the power of the situation you